Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our webinar titled Transitioning to the New Retail Apprenticeship Standard. We thank you for joining us. Apologies for the late running, we had some technical issues this morning. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to explain a few things about our webinar platform to allow you to get the most out of your experience. All viewers will be in listen-only mode. However, to engage with the webinar, please use the on-screen panel. You can also adjust your audio settings using the tabs on this panel. Feel free to use the question tab to engage with us during the webinar. We expect that our webinar will be extremely popular, but our team will do their best to answer your questions at the end. During our webinar, we will be running a number of polls. To record your response, please click on the on-screen voting button when asked to do so. After the webinar, we will be providing a recording of the webinar, a copy of the slides, and a Q&A sheet to answer any unanswered questions. Now I'd like to hand you over to our presenter and Industry Manager for Retail, Emma Mackay, who is also joined by our Apprenticeships Manager, Bill Twick.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emma Mackay, and I am the Industry Manager for Hair, Beauty and Retail. As my colleague Clary explained, I'm joined this morning by Bill Twig, our Apprenticeships Manager, and I also have on the telephone Jackie Hancock, who is our technical expert, our technical external quality assurance lead at City and Guilds for the retail standards and apprenticeships. This morning we're going to be covering a number of different topics. We're going to be looking at the overview of the apprenticeship reforms, the retail standard itself, so at level 2, the summary of the independent end assessment process, how we can support you to deliver the endpoint assessment, the next steps, and I'm going to be taking question and answers. So a general overview of the apprenticeship reforms. As I'm sure you are aware, the apprenticeship reforms and the apprenticeships are changing, and these are changing dramatically. You are part of that change. The government decided that what they wanted to do was design apprenticeship standards that were written by employers for employers. These are going to give employers a control in designing their own apprenticeships, increase the flexibility of delivery. They wanted to simplify the funding systems and increase the effectiveness of training within the workplaces. What we have done for you is Bill Twig has recorded a 12-minute recorded session all about the apprenticeship standards and the SASE frameworks. This is a really useful tool and something that you can listen to alone with your teams or with your employment organisations. So we do urge you to follow up on that link following today's session. I'm going to touch on funding. So the new funding band for our new level 2 retail apprenticeship is banded at funding band 7. So that's £5,000. Currently, we still have access to the SASE frameworks. These are due to be switched off imminently, whether that's going to be October 2017, as some of our reports this week have led us to believe, or alternatively April 2018. As soon as we do receive that confirmation, we will be able to confirm that for you. So what is the retailer standard? The retailer standard is a level 2 standard written by a number of employers. The standard was developed by these employers, so the Co-op Group, Ryman, John Lewis, Tesco, Asda, just to name a few. What happened when the Trailblazer groups were put together was that the government decided that they really did want employers from across the full remit of the retail sector to come together to look at small businesses, high street businesses, and the large organisations and businesses that really could voice what apprenticeships, what training and learning should look like within the workplace amongst a different number of employment opportunities. These employers have voiced their opinions. They've spent endless moments and hours forming together the retail standard. As with all of this professional standards written across all industry areas, the standards themselves are only a maximum of 2 pages long. You can actually access this standard for yourselves. There's a government website link at the bottom of today's presentation slides. So these can be accessed. They are updated on a regular basis. Following the new apprenticeship standard regulations and sort of guidance document that was published January 2017, these are likely to be reviewed again. However, as it stands today, your apprenticeship standard is accessible on the government website and ready for use. So what does this look like in more detail? The retailer standard is a minimum duration of 12 months, and it's been levelled at level 2. Progression with this particular retail standard provides progression onto, and ideally a stepping stone into, specialist, team leading, supervisory or first line management roles within retail and higher level training and apprenticeships. What's interesting about the retail standard is that there is no mandatory on-programme qualification. Gone are going to be the days where your learners would be working towards a combination of possibly NVQ qualifications, knowledge qualifications, and maybe possibly gaining qualifications without reaching the full framework of apprenticeship standard. In the new world of apprenticeships, actually what the employer or the provider chooses to do while on programme is entirely up to them. We actually have a poll question that we'd like to set to you and ask you, which I believe will pop up onto your screens. So when you find a moment of opportunity, if you could complete that, we would really appreciate it. What we're currently doing as a business and as an awarding organisation is seeking feedback as to what your employers are looking at in terms of support and in terms of real milestone checking while the learner is working towards their endpoint assessment. This can come in a variety of forms, and with the poll question we've asked you whether it is actually a formal qualification that they might be looking for. Is it that your unique selling point to your employers is that your young people, your apprentices, actually want to achieve a City and Guilds qualification in prior and preparation to carrying out their endpoint assessment? Could it be an apprenticeship training manual that would help? Something that maps directly to the new professional standard, something that helps lead them to the way of completing their endpoint assessment, something that perhaps provides them with mock questions in preparation for the on-demand test, that really does prepare them to meet and exceed and become that outstanding learner and apprentice with their endpoint assessment. Is it mock test papers that you could be looking for, or is it teaching and learning resources? And what might these look like? Is it online digital resources, credentialing you might be looking for? Is it, again, schemes of work, lesson plans, mock teaching sessions that you might be looking for? So if you please could take a moment to take a look at that poll question and get back to us as soon as possible, we can start to put together and further our development.
Okay, so you can see the results on screen there. We've got 80% teaching and learning resources. It's a split between apprenticeship training manuals and mock tests at 73% and 50% qualification.
Okay, thank you. So let's have a look at the summary of the independent end assessment process. This is the substantial change for the new world of apprenticeships. So once your learner has begun and undertaken their on-programme journey, and it's agreed between the apprentice and the employer that they are ready to undertake their endpoint assessment, this is their opportunity now to sit their endpoint assessment and achieve their full apprenticeship standard. So what does this look like for the level 2 retailer? There's an on-demand test, an observation and a professional discussion. The on-demand test must be the first assessment component, followed by the practical observation and finally the professional discussion. The apprentice will be assessed to the apprenticeship standard using these 3 complementary assessment methods. The assessment method is synoptic, therefore it takes a view of the overall performance of the apprentice in their job. The assessment activities will be completed in this order: the on-demand test, the practical observation, and the professional discussion. So, the on-demand test. Key facts. The on-demand test is a 30-minute on-demand multiple choice test. There are some scenario-based questions. It's externally set and externally marked. and it's undertaken either on the employer's premises or off-site. Once successful completion of the on-demand test, the applicant, so the apprentice, will be ready to undertake their practical observation. Much feedback to date from employers is that actually the practical observation is allowing for so much more scope and range to be able to really test and analyse the apprentice's skills within their working role. The practical observation is a 2-hour observation of this apprentice in the workplace. It must include an observation of the customer, the business, communication, and brand reputation elements within the standard. We will also include additional areas of the standard, but not any not identified will be assessed within the subsequent professional discussion. So if anything is missed within that practical observation, this can be picked up separately following the practical observation. The practical observation must maximise the apprentice's opportunity to demonstrate competence. For example, moving to another area of the business, perform different parts of the job role to enable them to really capture different elements of the standard. And then finally, the professional discussion. The 1-hour discussion between the apprentice and the independent end assessor. The employer presents to support but not lead, and the apprentice will confirm any key information. The professional discussion will include areas of the standard not seen in the observation, plus any additional key areas identified within the annex within the assessment plan, which again can be allocated online. The professional discussion is planned in advance and will allow the apprentice to fully prepare for the discussion. What I'd like to do is take an opportunity to link to Jackie Hancock. Jackie is our technical expert within the retail field. Jackie has been working hard behind the scenes, looking at what our endpoint assessment is looking like. So Jackie, I think we should be able to hear you now.
Hello. Yes, I've been unmuted. Thank you very much. Yeah, as Emma said, the 30-minute test we're working on presently to meet the criteria within the new standard so that it is targeted. It's only 30 minutes. The scenario-based, we're looking at giving the learner a scenario and then choosing an answer. So, you know, sort of a little bit more stretching than the current multi-choice. So that's what we're looking for, the online. Endpoint observation, again, will need a lot more organisation for allowing entrance into the premises to do the observation. And then the professional discussion should take place on the same day for sort of smart time, you know, make sure the time is used effectively.
Thank you, Jack.
Really. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. So, on completion and how to complete. So, on completion of the 3 core elements of the endpoint assessment, the independent end assessor will confirm that each assessment element has been completed. The endpoint assessment is then graded. The grade is determined by the independent end assessor on the overall performance of the apprentice in the observation and the professional discussion. And the apprentice will be graded with a pass, distinction, or fail. So, how can we support you to get ready for endpoint assessment? We have a variety of preparation resources and support available. We have the Apprentice Training Manual, which is underway and in development to support you as a provider and as an employer with that milestone tracking and the journey towards being ready to undertake the endpoint assessment. We have an endpoint assessment pack. We offer consultancy. We offer and have carried out mapping to existing qualifications. We have learning assistant, e-portfolio options, accreditation options. Perhaps as an employer you already offer a substantial and valuable learning program for your apprentices. We can also work with you to accredit what you offer. We have existing qualifications available. We carry out webinars to provide updates and information, and we carry out CPD events. We now have a second poll question for you to answer. The second poll question is about the qualification element. Do you think that a qualification is essential to run alongside the learner's on-programme journey? Again, there should be an option available and ready for you now. If you could please click the appropriate button.
Okay, so you can see the results on the screen there. There's a split between 49% of you said yes, 37% no, and 14% not sure.
Thank you. We do have an existing qualification that is open for registrations now. It's the 1013 qualification. And again, if I pass you over to Jackie Hancock to talk about that qualification and how it could help your apprentices as part of their on-programme journey.
Hi, yeah, the 1013 is what they used to call the technical certificate for the apprenticeship programme, where they would sit the test online and they were targeted at outcomes like customer service, legislation, health and safety, security. We have those bank of questions which are currently being reviewed and updated for currency. We did the legislation ones last year, so you should all be working, if you are providers, with the new handbook for 1013. But as I say, they are being reviewed and they are looked to be a milestone qualification. Short time frame to sit the test, so it shouldn't sort of impose on employers too much, and the arrangements around taking the tests to the learners would remain the same. So it's the same qualification, but we are reviewing the question banks currently.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
So should you require any support, guidance around qualifications, what qualifications are advisable, please do contact us and we will seek to answer those questions for you. We will be carrying out further webinars, CPD events and activity to help to support you in making the right choices for your employers and for your apprentices in turn. So the Apprentice Training Manual, the key features. The Apprentice Training Manual is currently under development. We have tasks for the learners to complete to ensure coverage of the retailer standard. There's lists of key terms, key definitions, how each task relates to the actual standard. Some great preparatory activities to check the learner's understanding as part of their on-programme journey. Practical tasks to allow the learner to apply their knowledge in their own role and organisation. So really embed the skill and the knowledge that they're learning while working towards the endpoint assessment. And there's areas for reflective practice for the learners to be able to consider what they've learnt, what they need to improve, and how they're going to do that moving forward. The training manual will also include a mapping document. This details how the tasks will meet different elements of the standard. It includes progress trackers, lists of key milestones, as well as information on how to use the manual as part of the programme. It will also include continual signposting to English and Maths. We also have and produce an endpoint assessment pack. The key document for customers really is essential when planning the delivery of your apprenticeships. It will include the standard, guidance on how to actually book your EPA, guidance on how to actually book the on-demand test, who will undertake the test, who will oversee the undertaking of the test, guidance on what situation will be needed to set up the valid practical observation, and how the professional discussion will work. We've also put together an endpoint assessment pack for independent end assessors. This is a key document for the independent end assessor to conduct the end assessment and grade to the candidates. It includes guidance around what they will need to see as part of the valid practical observation, what happens if they don't see everything that they need to see as listed within the occupational brief, and also includes guidance around a professional discussion, kind of around the questions to ask, what type of questions to expect, any prompting that can be provided, and also, if necessary, how the actual discussion could or will be recorded. Many employers have begun to ask who will be the independent end assessors and how will we apply. We have just recently launched a new endpoint assessment element to our website, and within the website you will be able to find various forms, guides, facts, information around who and how to apply to become an independent endpoint assessor. A general timeline of events. So May 2017, the Wall Garden remains open for existing registrations on our existing 1013 Retail Knowledge Qualification. Today we're carrying out a webinar to give you an overview of all of the key facts and messages around the Level 2 Retailer Apprenticeship Standard. Throughout the summer and into the autumn terms, we're building and renewing our question banks linked to said qualifications and preparing the apprentice training manual ready for delivery. We anticipate first bookings of the EPA will take place in approximately February 2018, with the endpoint assessment made readily available to employers from May 2018. Price-wise, our endpoint assessment is costed at £500 per learner with a resit fee of £200. On-programme will depend on what on-programme options you choose to take on board as an employer. So the qualification, there is a qualification option as an optional offer really to your learner and to your employers if you are a provider. Qualification registration fees will apply, and whether you choose to take on the training manuals, the test papers, the mock papers, will all individually occur individual prices, which will all be available via our website. For more information, please do contact the apprenticeship team on the apprenticeships@cityandguilds.com website as well. So how do you provide or register or become part of this endpoint assessment journey for the new Level 2 Retailer Apprenticeships? There is a City and Guilds approval process. If you're new to City and Guilds, you will need to gain endpoint assessment financial approval. If you're a current City and Guilds centre, you'll also need to apply for endpoint assessment approval for the desired occupation. If you would like to deliver the qualification linked to the standard, you will need to apply for qualification approval. The assessment pack will be available on the website once you have registered. And if you're delivering the qualifications, you must ensure that your staff are able to demonstrate that they have occupational expertise that is required. The endpoint assessment reservation process. So the registering of the learner for the on-programme and or EPA journey. The actual reservation of the booking of the EPA must take place 90 days prior to the actual EPA taking place, and the EPA fee will then be charged. A date for the EPA will be agreed with ourselves, City and Guilds, the provider and the employer. The ESFA data will be captured and issued to the provider or employer, and then the provider or employer will submit said data and gateway declarations to City and Guilds. After the successful endpoint assessment, grades will be agreed. The provider or employer will receive a City and Guilds EPA certificate. EPA, ESFA data form will be then uploaded, and the ESFA will issue a certificate of achievement to the employer. We are now going to show you a snapshot of our how to become an endpoint assessor webpage, which can be found on www.cityandguilds.com website. The next steps to consider if you are wishing to take things further with us. So looking at understanding your needs, so understanding your apprenticeship, we do offer consultancy around supporting you with making the right decisions. We can help you to audit your current apprenticeship strategy, help you to define your apprenticeship offer, and we can look at supporting you with upskilling your apprenticeship teams. We have an array of support and of resources available. Find all of our past and forthcoming workshops, webinars and events with the link that will be as part of the slide. Please do have a look at our apprenticeship consultancy and events pages on our City and Guilds websites. And also there are links here provided for you to the government information sites as well. Thank you ever so much for signing in and logging into our webinar this morning. Please do keep up to date, register for email updates. There's a link on the final slide here for you. To be involved in the developments of the new qualifications, there is also an email address available for you on the screen. For more information on the standards, our learning resources, and how we can support you as a business, we have the direct sales team email address available for you. And for any additional information on endpoint assessment, the endpoint assessment team email can also be found on the screen.
Okay, so if you have any questions, now's your time to enter them into the panel on the side and we'll ask Emma for you. So the first question we have here is, can the training provider invigilate the on-demand test for EPA?
Yes, that's an easy one. Yes, they can.
They can do it as long as they meet the City and Guilds requirements for invigilation.
Okay, this question here is, when will the PD planning be sent to enable the learner to prepare? How far in advance? If you could let us know what you mean by PD. Is it professional development or professional discussion? Just let us know. Another question here, can we start delivery now?
Yeah. You can start delivery now. We do have the existing qualification that is available and open for registrations now. As Jackie explained earlier, we are carrying out a review of the question bank so that we can help to mirror the style and type of question that the learner will come across as part of the EPA. However, yes, you can start working towards that EPA now.
It's Bill Twig. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's also worth mentioning that the qualification isn't mandatory in the standard, which means that though you would be able to claim funding in the delivery of the qualification, as far as registration and certification costs, they would have to be paid for external to funding, which is either the cost of the provider or employer.
All right. Now, who pays for resits?
The resits. This is an interesting scenario. There's basically that you will negotiate a price for the apprenticeship that does not exceed the ceiling of the funding band. Now, within that price, the employer and yourselves can negotiate that a certain element is put aside for resit costs. However, if you end up in a scenario where resits need to be taken and all the funding, and you've already reached the ceiling of that particular funding band, then the actual cost will have to be, any additional cost will have to be borne by the provider or employer, depending upon the contractual relationship and who has the responsibility.
Okay, thanks, Bill. We've got another EPA question here. EPA registration 90 days prior, is that before 12 months or at 12 months?
As far as you can certainly negotiate with us to, as far as planning going forward, to be able to get your endpoint assessment as quickly as possible, but obviously we can't take a formal booking until you meet the gateway requirement, which is post 12 months. So I guess for those that want to be early birds and want to get in and make sure that they achieve endpoint assessment as early as possible, then we would be interested in talking to you to look at proposed draft plans that we could build into our schedules.
Fantastic. Okay, we've just got a few minutes left, so if you can send all your questions now through, and any we don't get to answer, we will follow up after the webinar. So we've got one here. How many resits can be taken?
There's no designated number of resits, so as far as we are concerned, unless the Trailblazer Employer Group informs us differently, is that the resits can be taken as and when required. Obviously, the inhibitor will be the cost that will be, because these are quite expensive instruments. These are quite excessive activities to fund.
Great. Do you have a scheme reference yet?
Product number.
I think if you could clarify if we mean a product number, a registration number, we can get that back to you.
All right. What will be the cancellation timings for EPA?
Terms and conditions will be made available very shortly, but basically there will be a sliding scale regarding endpoint assessment cancellations. Depending upon the cost incurred, so if assessors have been contracted to deliver, then clearly that will be a burden of the cost and cancellation. But our anticipation is that we want to try and make cancellation charges as fair as possible.
Fantastic. So we have a question here. Can you clarify the gateway requirements?
Yes, I think you will be, what will be essential is if you access the government's paperwork, so the actual professional standards online, you will find that you will be able to allocate the professional standard and the assessment plan. I'm just going to bring that up on my iPad, and you will find that the gateway requirements for the retailer at level 2 include the successful completion of English and Maths at the required level, and also agreement between the learner, the provider and the employer as to determine that the learner is ready for the endpoint assessment.
Okay, so going back to the scheme of reference query, can you, such as 1013-22, I mean by scheme reference.
Okay, so 1013 is the qualification reference. We have put together a new reference 4-digit code for the level 2 retailer, which I can inform you of afterwards. I shall ask one of the product executives to message that to us.
Okay, just a couple more. Can assessors of your own organisation be endpoint assessors and carry out endpoint assessment for learners that aren't assigned to them?
We'll be looking to recruit assessors onto this program, and we would manage the conflict of interest issues. So if we do draw down support skills from your organisation, which will be contracted and paid for by City and Guilds, then we would obviously make sure that the use of those assessors would meet the criteria as far as independency is concerned.
Okay, just for more, will there be a standard EPA observation made?
A standard EPA observation made? Is that in terms of the actual observation as part of it?
I think what was being asked for, perhaps I can have a crack at this, is that what I think is happening is that we will be providing the assessment instruments, and those assessment instruments will be implemented consistently and coherently across England, and that will be in the design of the instrument and also the monitoring and validation of the decisions that are made through an internal quality assurance approach. So there will be a consistent and coherent approach to observations across the England.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to end the webinar there, but thank you for tuning in, and we will send you a copy of the slides, the recording, and we will answer all the questions that have come through this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Goodbye.
Bye.